Welcome, everybody, to the Censinet Champions webinar series. This is a new launch that we are kicking off today, where we are speaking with Censinet customers and learning more about their journey with Censinet and risk management. I am pleased today to be joined by James Case, the VP, Vice President, and Chief Information Security Officer at Baptist Health in Jacksonville, Florida. James, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning. How are you? I'm good.
Good, good. How's the weather there? We're experiencing cold weather for spring. First day of spring last night.
Yeah,
Um,
very cold here. It's
mm,
it's luckily blue skies and sunny, but it was 45 degrees this morning.
wow. Well, that's you've got Boston weather. So,
hmm
all right, so we've got a pretty tight agenda here. So if we go to the agenda slide, so we're gonna really, James, learn more about what Baptist was doing prior to Censinet, your process, the things you thought about as you evaluated a tool for your TPRM program, how it's working today, and then what's the broader organizational impact of really driving automation in third-party risk, and what are some of the benefits you've seen?
Sounds good.
So, let's start. So, I know we've spoken in the past about what it was like at Baptist, but if you could tell the listeners today sort of what Baptist was working with prior to bringing in automation.
Yeah, good question. I think it's like most organizations, certainly hospitals, where before partners such as Censinet, it's just spreadsheets, right? So I think spreadsheet chaos is a great way to put it, right? You're tracking spreadsheets, you're updating spreadsheets, you're emailing spreadsheets, you're waiting to get spreadsheets back, it's just spreadsheets. It's all manual and spreadsheets. And so I think that's the biggest thing that comes to mind, that what we were living, before Censinet, that Censinet just washes all that away for us.
Yeah, and I imagine it must be difficult to find data in those data, those spreadsheet objects, right? You've got them probably spread out all over the place.
Version control, so like tracking, oh wait, that's last year's spreadsheet. Wait, we need to update it. And then not to mention even really taking time to go update the spreadsheets, like to remove questions, add questions, combine questions, right? So that was an annual process that we had to do that Censinet has taken off the plate for us and really handles for us.
Yeah, that curation process can be daunting for a lot of organizations. Talk a little more about that. How did the team look at driving curation in the dreaded spreadsheet?
Yeah, well, I think foundational to that, to my answer to that would be we were on our own, right? That's something, I really thought about this morning as I was driving to work, that when we were in spreadsheet world, we were just on our own. We just had to figure it out, right? Maybe we had a partner help us set it up 5, 10 years ago, or before, but at that point we were on our own. So we had to figure out on our own what we wanted to add as far as curating questions, right? And what feedback we got from vendors as they were, had questions about the questions. So we had to clarify the questions. So it was just that constant hair and feeding of the questions to stay current, have relevant questions, but not too many, but not too few. So finding that balance. And so again, Censinet just takes all that away for us and manages it for us. And so that's just one of the many things that helps us really be more streamlined and save time, be more efficient.
Yeah, and that lack of leverage that you can't get from a spreadsheet or even an application that is unique to your organization, where you might have the flexibility to customize it, but that sort of takes away from the leverage you can get from community. Talk more about that.
Yeah, good point. No, right on. That even if we had a way to really manage and it wasn't spreadsheets, we'd still be on our own and not part of our larger community.
Mhm.
So Censinet as a company, focused on that and really curating that, but then really, the family of all of your customers, right? That you connect us with. And so now we have other hospitals to reach out to that we didn't know before Censinet, but now we do know because of Censinet, that we
Mhm.
can ask questions and partner with on things. And so I love that part of it as well. So we're not only getting, so we are not only do we get rid of all spreadsheets, but we have that larger community to partner with and work with.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's nice way to tee up the next slide. We've covered a lot of these things already, but Talk to us about how the Censinet product Risk Ops is helping you in your team, and what were some of the things that you found that were requirements going into the relationship, but then also things that you were sort of pleasantly surprised that were there that you hadn't considered.
Well, I think, yeah, to your point, I think that, yeah, this next slide just kind of builds upon where we were a second ago, that not only does it take away all those things and really provide all that, but and like, as I talk about this to people and really share my story, is it's healthcare focused, right? Which I love, right? It's not just, risk assessment, it's healthcare focused, which is fantastic. Standards based, right? Based on NIST standards. So it's not just random questions that we were making up, 2 years ago before Censinet. And then the partnership aspect, right? So we're not on our own. We have you as a partner, and we have other Censinet customers that we partner with as well to work with. And those
Yeah,
are things that were important as we were looking. But I would say the fact that with Censinet we hit on all those points and kind of struck gold with that is maybe something that was beyond what I was expecting, and so we kind of got lucky with that really as we partner with Censinet on this.
that's good. That's great. And you've been a great partner. You've given us a lot of insight into requirements and things that we could add to the product over time. Can you
I was
talk
just going
about
to go
that?
there. I was
Yeah,
just
good, good, awesome, awesome.
on the partnership, but right. So early in our relationship, right, there was something that I was looking for. And I love the fact, again, as far as a partner, I was able to email your company and ask your team, hey, what would it take to do this? And I've never had a vendor that's really a partner like this that that same week wrote back with clarifying questions, had a meeting scheduled, and your team already straw manned up some ideas and said, is this what you're thinking? And I was blown away that it's something I was envisioning that would be an improvement that your team embraced and kind of straw manned out and mocked up, and then met with me a week later to get feedback. So I've never had that happen before with any vendor or partner, and so that was pretty cool. So that blew me away as far as expectations and provides more value.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you obviously continue to work with the team, and your team continues to work with our team in adding more capabilities and more value to the platform overall.
Yep.
Um, so as you think about other aspects of the partnership, how important is the customer, being part of the customer advisory board and attending those meetings that we have on a regular basis?
Yeah, I love that. With my closest partners and vendors, I love to be part of those boards because it's another way to get to know your other customers, so I can build and get to know them, and partner with them even outside of Sensinet, right? And really get to know each other and collaborate. But then seeing what's coming down the pipe and having input on it, just like you did with me offline when I had a question, but being part of your cab, so to speak, is a way to do that more formally and a more collaborative approach. It's not just me, right? So I enjoy that as well.
And that's also led to some new relationships that you've been able to form, right, through those introductions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, very good,
Yeah, part
very
of the whole
good.
Sensinet family is kind of what I call
That's great. You also were instrumental in helping us really drive and launch our community platform, which is a portal where users and others can get in there and really ask questions peer to peer. Um, you know, t Tell us about that and how that's working for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's powerful because it's a structured way to go in and ask questions and really collaborate versus just emails or phone
Hmm.
calls or, Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. So yeah, it's that structured way to go in, and then there's a way to, have categories in there, right? So that's powerful and helpful and saves time.
And then I know that our CS team has been helping out your team with onboarding as well. Vendors that may not be as responsive as we would like initially. I mean, we save a lot of time once vendors obviously engage in that overall workflow and process. But can you talk about that and what that's meant to your team?
Well, I think that speaks to the now that we're not in the spreadsheet world, it's Sensinet. And so I love how when we have a vendor coming on board or that we're assessing that's already in Sensinet, right? That saves a ton of time for both
Hmm.
them and us. And then when it's somebody that's new to both of us, right? Then right, there's the onboarding process where it's a new partner to you as well. And so your team helps to kind of build that out and then set that up. So when another hospital has a risk assessment for that same vendor, it'll help them, right? So it's kind of a whole shared kind of win-win.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's take a look at the next slide and let's go into some more of the details about how Sensinet's helping you out. Okay, Saul. Ah, there we go. I think Saul went to go get coffee, James.
Mhm.
So I know we talked in advance to get your thoughts, but take us through how Sentinel's helping out your team today, and some of the obviously direct benefits that you're getting from the platform itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the words on the screen really speak to kind of the kind of the golden points there, right?
Mhm.
So, it's standards based is kind of what we talked about a second ago, but a single source of truth, right? Again, it gets in the spreadsheet world, we had varying sources of truth, and it was complex and hard to keep track of. And so, knowing that we had this golden source of truth, it's also based on standardization and NIST and other standards, and then it really provides the whole consistency for us, right? That we love. And then again, as we collaborate with our peers, and they're using Censinet as well, then we can all talk the same language and benefit from the same structure. I also love the fact that we can put all of our documentation there, right? So it gives me a place to put that, as far as a single source of truth, our documentation that we get from our vendors, so we can have our data flow diagram and all the, certain things that are all in one place. So we know where to get it. It's one-stop shop, right? Versus our network drives or SharePoint or different places where we may put it, knowing that it's all in one place for everything risk assessment related is helpful and powerful. And again, that last bullet we've already touched on, but I love the fact that I'm out of the business of coming up with questions. That was not dreaded, but
Yeah,
kind of dreaded, right? Like it
yeah.
was that annual process where we had it on our kind of department calendar where every January we would sit down and review and take the time to do that. But now I can take that's off the calendar because you're doing that for me.
Yes, yes. And again, you provide a lot of input into that. I remember when the tracking software issue came out, you were one of the first to call us and say, "Hey, can we add this to the questionnaire?" And
Yep.
our team was already in the process of looking at
I
it with other customers, which was great.
love it.
And obviously when AI came out, we added some questions related to artificial intelligence, and we continue to stay current, obviously, with NIST 2.0, which was just got released 2 weeks ago. So that'll be coming out at the end of this month, I believe. So,
Hey, Ed, to your point though, right? So it's not just risk assessments, right? And kind of what you just touched on, like just dropped a little nugget there is you also assess, for NIST, right? CSF, right?
mhm.
1.1 or 1.2 and now 2.0. And so the fact that you've added those other functionalities now gives me a broader one-stop shop for not just risk assessments, but also assessing ourselves, right, through the
Right.
NIST CSF and then hiccup, right? So I love the fact that it has those other functionalities that you've built out to add more value. And again, it's one-stop shop, and now it's more in there for that one-stop shop. It's not just risk assessments. So I love that fact as well that you've grown and added that functionality, added more value for our investment. So
Yeah, that's great. And what advice do you have to customers or prospects that are looking at a TPRM solution and they're thinking about their current process and bringing in a new tool
mhm,
and trying to work with a current process. How do you think about? Because I know some customers,
mhm.
are steadfast that they've got the best process. Your team was pretty good about letting the tools sort of inform your process. And talk about that.
Yeah, I love the fact that again, even if we had a tool or we went out and built our own or built a fancy, SharePoint site, but at the end of the day, we'd be on our own, inventing the wheels on our own. And so again, it goes back to the partnership, right? So I think the
Mhm.
foundation is partners. So we have you to rely on. We go to you for that. You're our one-stop shop. And then we have the peers that you've introduced us to really partner with on that. So again, to me, it's a no-brainer that Censinet would be on a short list to really review for any third-party risk management platform or program. But just keep in mind, my advice would be also think about the partnership aspect, right? Even if you bought this great off-the-shelf software and you installed it and it works great, you're on your own, right? So I would advise, think about the partner aspect and what you can get, how you benefit from those, that relationship and those relationships. Because I found that to be super valuable. Again, not only third party risk management, but other topics that go beyond that.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. And let's go to the last slide here. We've already sort of touched upon this, but
Oh,
let's talk
yeah.
about the.
So I kind of hit that early. Sorry.
No, that's good. No, let's talk about the broader value because let's unpack that a little more because I know you've used a lot of the data within the benchmarking, the peer benchmarking aspects of the product. So can you talk more about that?
Right. So not only does it do more than just, all of the risk assessments, but it's, NIST-CSF as far as us assessing ourselves and tracking that. But then to your point, then we have access to the, peer benchmarking. So we can see where we stand really in like comparison to our peers. And really leadership loves that, right? It's about how are we doing? How do we compare? And you provide that without us asking for it. Like you went out and did that. I didn't ask for that feature, but you added it, right? So I love that. Again, I think that's powerful. More things, more value to get from the investment and the partnership. Things to keep in mind when you're shopping for a TPRM.
Yeah, and that leverage again, coming back to leveraging the community
Right.
and really drawing from the best practices and the experiences of your peers, and then taking that back in and really helping it, using it to help inform decisions
Yep.
around investments and resources and where there's certain things that you can talk about from the benchmarking perspective that you learned and that you were able to use at either a leadership or board level to maybe get a better to get more investment or even more resources.
Yeah, it's really powerful data for the board of directors to share because again, those are the senior of the senior leaders that really want to see kind of the whole comparison.
Hmm.
And you know, it's not that any kind of perfection is ever expected, right? All of us as our practitioners need to be always improving, right? So it's about where we on our journey to really improve, and those benchmarks help provide that, right? We're on that journey, and we can track our progress, and having it show where we are is powerful and really tells that story, and that's important to have. And I love that the graphic shows us, CSF 2.0. So thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll have that in the product in a couple of weeks, which is exciting at the end of this
Awesome.
month. Excellent. And so, any last thoughts or comments on the product, the company, any advice you give to people that are looking for a solution?
I mean, again, I just looking at that last question, I think we touched on that a little bit. That since you've added CSF, right, and you've added Hiccup, and those are other, and then the whole benchmarking, right? Those are areas that we didn't bargain for that you provided for us that add value for the organization as a whole. And then again, I think advice for anyone looking at a third-party risk management, solution or system. I think the foundational point would be think about the partnership aspect. Look at the product, any product, all the best products, and narrow it down to your short list. But think about the whole partnership aspect and what having a partner brings, both from them directly and then all those relationships that they bring to the table as well, as far as peer networking. Those are things that I've have been pleasantly surprised at and leveraged and found value from both through Censinet and things that you've helped us get to. So.
Excellent. Excellent, James. We've got a couple of questions from the from the audience here. So, uh, first question is, how do you plan to manage the CPGs? So the CPGs are the cybersecurity performance goals that were just announced by HHS and came out at the end of last
Well,
year, and are getting a lot more momentum recently as we're all dealing with this Change Healthcare situation.
then I will call an audible on that, and because this is unplanned, right? We're just talking here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I would say that's something that I would ask Sensinet to add, right? Just like you've added Hiccup and CSF, I would hope that you would add that as well as a tracking, a platform, an assessment, something we can use to build our roadmap
Yeah.
to see where we stand on that, and then all the benchmarking as well.
You're a great setup guy. We actually are adding it.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad.
So
I mean,
we're
I thought about it, I would have hoped, but thank you.
yeah, yeah. No, actually the first features are delivered with our NIST 2.0 update.
Okay.
So those will be coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. So love for you to take a look at that and give us your feedback as always.
Excited to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, kind of live here on the webinar.
Yeah. Um, as much as you can talk about the Change Healthcare situation, this question is, how are you managing it?
Wow. So good question. I certainly can't talk in too much detail, but yeah, I mean, I think like all of our peers, all the other hospitals, first reacting to it, right? Doing our playbook as far as response, right? So closing down connections, site-to-site VPNs and any sort of website access, data sharing, all those sort of connections. And then we're partnering with our business to find alternatives, right? Stay in touch with Change Healthcare, share what we learn, be ready to respond as we learn more information. But yeah, it's difficult, right? So I would say change is also teaching us kind of our reliance on those third parties. I mean, really, day one, it reminded me of a Chronos,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we couldn't do any time tracking,
Right.
right? So it impacted us from a business perspective in a huge way, and tons of hospitals and schools and companies. And so, really, Change Healthcare is, I think, teaching us we all need to take a step back and look at our third-party risk management programs from the availability, side as well.
Yeah.
So when this company goes offline or the service goes offline, ignoring even if it's a cyber event or not, what is our reliance on that? What is our backup procedures? Are we single sourcing, putting all of our eggs into one company, right? So companies that are only relying on Change Healthcare are drastically impacted. Luckily, we were not solely relying on it. So
Yeah.
we were impacted. We are impacted, but not to the degree of some of our peers. And so again, I think the lesson there is think about that when you're partnering with companies and onboarding them. If you're going to single source everything, everything to them, if they were to go offline, what are those backup procedures? I think is what it's driving for us here at Baptist Health and my peers.
Yeah, really getting an understanding of the vendor concentration risk you have across your critical
Right.
business processes, and then the ultimate impact
Yep. So
is
maybe
really
we need to onboard more alternates, right? Or others need to
yeah,
onboard
yeah, or at
alternates.
least have them in our pocket exactly. As part of a recovery, as
Yep.
part of a resiliency plan, right? So it's another dimension of that plan that
You
I
got it.
think many of us didn't consider. Um, this question is how was the implementation process with Censinet time to value? Question mark.
Good question. I would say it was pretty quick. I mean, it was 2 years ago, right? So a little blurry, but no, my memory is it was pretty easy to go from living in spreadsheet world to Censinet because it's a SaaS, right? So it's
Mhm.
easy to jump right in. We had a login, boom, we started using it, right? So I would say very quickly, and there's really nothing to really configure, right? It's very basic. We just start using it, and then it's really about shifting our process over, which was quite simple.
Yeah, cool. And then lastly, what would your team say about the productivity benefits they've received? I think that question implies you don't use the product, James.
Good question. No, I mean we all use it, but certainly I'm not the primary user,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
No, I would say productivity benefits would be again, as we talked early on, we're not spending time managing, curating questions in a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
What do we put in the questions? How do we respond to the questions? Or are we getting the right, are we getting the right version of the spreadsheet back?
Mhm.
Do we send the right version of the spreadsheet out? That whole process, all those manual steps are now gone. You're managing that for us. So
Yeah.
I'd say from a time perspective, there was a lot of time saved there. When it comes to vendors, responding, right? There's no magic there. We still have to
Mhm.
wait for them to respond and answer the
Yeah.
questions in Censinet. And
Yeah.
so I would say Censinet's helped on that, but there's no silver bullet there. It still
Yeah.
relies on the vendors and the partners to
Mhm.
collaborate with you and Censinet and us
Yeah.
on answering the questions and getting them filled
Yeah.
out. So I'd say there's been some improvement there, better
But one
tracking on that as
but
well.
once they're in there, obviously,
Yeah.
if you're inviting a vendor and product that's already in the platform, part of the inventory
Correct.
of the catalog, that's a pretty immediate response you're
Then
getting
that
then.
saves a lot of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a
Uh,
lot, categorically, I think there's lots of chunks of places where it's saving us time. Yep.
nice. And have you found that you've reallocated some of that time into other areas of the business? Have folks been able to focus in other areas? Have you been able to
At the
redeploy
same time,
people?
we rolled out new CSF. So I would say it allows us more time to really manage our CSF
Ah,
platform and program and really
nice.
maturing that, tracking our roadmap and making sure that we're making progress on our procedures and metrics and really maturing that, right? There's no perfection there either, but it's about the whole improvement process. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I would say it's allowed us a few more cycles to focus on that.
that's great. That's
So
great. All right. Well, we've been talking to James Case, the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Baptist Health in Jacksonville, Florida. James, thank you so much. You are a true champion.
thank you.
We appreciate your support as always.
Always have a great day. Nice to see you, Ed.
Thank you. Likewise.